Martinsville Speedway was host to an Xfinity Series race that turned to an absolute wreckfest. The Marine Corps 250 was far from an incredible race. The number of caution laps and avoidable incidents made it seem less like a professional motorsports event and more like a demolition derby. Even Dale Jr. tweeted this issue, saying, "This racetrack is historic in the grand scheme of all things NASCAR and deserves better." This kind of racing not only disrespects the legacy of Martinsville, but also raises serious concerns about the quality of competition in the Xfinity Series. To fully understand how chaotic this race was, just keep watching till the end. There were over 100 caution flag laps in a race that was only 250 laps long. That means for nearly half the race, cars were not actually racing, but rather creeping around the track under yellow flag conditions. The third and final stage was particularly messy, with more yellow flag laps than green flag laps. That is an unacceptable level of carnage for a series that is supposed to be a proving ground for drivers hoping to reach the NASCAR Cup Series.
But so far so good. Stage 2 delivers again for the 88, the rookie with a sweep in the first two stages here at Martinsville.
The race began in a relatively clean fashion, with Connor Zilic sweeping the first two stages. But once the final stage began, the entire field seemed to abandon any sense of racecraft. Wreck after wreck occurred as drivers made reckless moves, diving into corners with no regard for who was ahead of them. Some of these incidents were caused by young, inexperienced drivers trying to make a name for themselves, while others involved more seasoned drivers who should have known better.
Hill, out of nowhere, it's going to win in Martinsville. Do you believe that? With a huge crash at the start-finish line.
One of the most egregious moments came from Austin Hill. Despite being an experienced driver with upcoming Cup Series starts, he drove as if he had nothing to lose. At one point, he blatantly wrecked multiple cars in an unnecessary display of aggression. To his credit, he later apologized and promised to make phone calls to the affected drivers, but that does not excuse the lack of patience and respect he displayed on the track. Sam Meyer was another major offender. He has been vocal about wanting a shot in the Cup Series, but his performance in this race is exactly why he has not yet earned that opportunity. He caused a multi-car wreck that was entirely avoidable, showing no ability to back out of a bad situation. Instead of exercising patience, he plowed through a pack of cars, leading to a significant crash that damaged numerous competitors. Moves like this do not demonstrate skill, they demonstrate recklessness.
Drives through, Sammy Smith trying to take the race lead. Taylor Gray not going away in that outside lane. Brandon Jones is there.
Taylor got that gathered up really impressively and was able to continue to get a run. We've got a caution on the track.
The race's final moments were perhaps the most embarrassing display of all. On the second to last restart, Sammy Smith pushed race leader Taylor Gray wide to take the lead. Gray had controlled much of the race and executed his restarts perfectly, but Smith simply shoved him out of the way rather than passing him cleanly. On the final restart, Gray returned the favor, but did so in a way that still allowed for a fair battle. But Smith responded by completely dive-bombing the last corner, taking out both himself and Gray and stacking up the entire field behind them. This kind of move is not skillful, it's desperate. Ironically, the win went to Austin Hill, one of the drivers who had been involved in chaos earlier in the night. These kinds of reckless moves are why drivers like Smith will never make it to the Cup Series if they do not change their approach. Cup Series teams want drivers who can race aggressively but also intelligently. A driver who simply wrecks competitors to gain positions is not valuable to a top-tier team. Racing is about skill, patience, and calculated aggression, not just blindly sending a car into a corner and hoping for the best. Dale Earnhardt Jr. expressed his frustration with the way the race played out, and rightfully so. Martinsville is a legendary short track that has been a staple of NASCAR history for decades. It deserves better than what the Xfinity Series put on display. Instead of a race showcasing talent and strategy, fans were treated to a crash-filled mess where survival was more important than speed. The lack of respect for both the track and the competitors was appalling. Austin Hill should have been penalized for that move and sent to the back. While he eventually wrecked and ended up paying the price anyway, that was just a coincidence.
Moved him up the racetrack and potentially is going to clear him off for turn 4. They're side by side to turn 1.
NASCAR should have stepped in right away. Another major incident occurred when Sammy Smith made an overly aggressive move going into turn 3 and took out the number 54 car. That was a reckless move, and he should have been sent to the back of the lead lap. Racing incidents happen, and bumping is part of the sport, but when a driver completely overdrives a corner and takes out another competitor, there should be a consequence. It is frustrating to watch a race where reckless driving is not penalized, but retaliation is. Many times, a driver who gets wrecked unfairly will try to get back at the person who did it, and that's when NASCAR decides to step in. That's a huge problem because it sends the wrong message. It tells drivers that if they wreck someone first, they can get away with it, but if the other driver fights back, they'll be punished. That's not how officiating should work. There was a moment after the race where Taylor Gray confronted Sammy Smith, and they had a heated discussion, but in the end, nothing happened. There was no real resolution because NASCAR doesn't punish the initial offense. Drivers need to learn their lesson on the track, not just in a conversation after the race.
I actually said during the race that I hated this place because of all the beating and banging that was going on, and to top it off, we won the $100,000. I forgot we even won that. So, man, this is awesome. I got a perfect place for the grandfather clock.
$100,000 in his pocket and a 100th Xfinity Series win for RCR. Austin Hill, Kim, does it at Martinsville.
This lack of officiating encourages young drivers to be reckless because they know they won't be punished for it. Austin Hill made one of the worst moves of the night, yet he walked away with a race win and an extra $100,000 from the Xfinity Series. That sends a bad message to everyone watching. If drivers aren't held accountable by their team owners, then NASCAR needs to step in and enforce rules that make racing fairer. Right now, many young drivers bring millions of dollars in sponsorships to their teams, and because of that, the team owners don't always hold them accountable for aggressive driving. That's why NASCAR Race Control has to step up and make the necessary changes. Of course, NASCAR making these changes won't be easy. There will be times when officials make the wrong call or when a wreck is difficult to judge. But even with the risk of occasional mistakes, it's worth it. The way races are being decided right now is embarrassing for the sport. If NASCAR wants to be taken seriously, it needs to clean up short track racing. Right now, when international drivers look at NASCAR, they see chaos. A Formula One driver considering a NASCAR Cup Series start would take one look at how short track races are being officiated and decide to stay away. It's bad for the sport's reputation, and it makes the racing worse for everyone involved. So, what do you think about this? Don't forget to comment down your thoughts right now. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well.